Welcome to the Mario Roberto Jiu-Jitsu Association Basic Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Curriculum. The purpose of this video set is to provide you with a standardized, easy-to-use curriculum optimized for the beginner student. During the course of 60 classes, you're going to be exposed to the core material that comprises the technical basis of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Its techniques are also the basic cornerstones to promotion to blue belt. We have put a lot of hard work and effort into this videotape series. Please respect it by not making illegal copies. We appreciate your cooperation and we thank you for choosing us to train you. Let's talk about the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu ranking system. As a new student, I know you're interested in trying to find out how you can progress in rank and get to a black belt level. Well, first of all, the adult ranking system will consist of 5 different belt colors: white, blue, purple, brown, and black. You will be considered an adult if you're above the age of 16. Now, for kids under the age of 16, there will be different color belts, and it depends really on age and for how long they've been training. Usually, you want to check with your local affiliate program to see what belt colors they use. As far as the adult, belt system, like I said, there are 5 different levels, and for every level, we're going to have 4 different subdivisions called stripes. So I can be a white belt without any stripes. I can be a white belt with 1, 2, 3, and 4 stripes. After I get my 4th stripe, my next promotion will be to the next belt color. It's important to understand that the stripes are awarded by your direct instructor, be it me if you train at my main school or your affiliated representative. Once you're awarded 4 belt stripes, then you're going to be eligible for testing. Now, in testing, you're going to go through the basic curriculum required for every single belt color, and if you demonstrate enough proficiency, you're going to be promoted on the spot. Every belt test in this association is done personally by me. What that does is that it allows us to have a standardized curriculum, and we guarantee a high level of quality amongst our members. It's important to understand as a beginner that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is different from other martial arts. Our ranking system is extremely tough. Sometimes it will take a couple of years to progress from one belt color to the other. Do not worry about it. Focus on your training and focus on the level of knowledge you acquire throughout the classes. In this segment, we're going to cover Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu throws. It's obvious that throwing is actually not one of our specialties in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Unfortunately, with the time we got so much specialized in the groundwork that we forgot as a system, to develop a good throws. But we do have a couple of throws there, and they're mainly used for self-defense. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu throws are very easy to teach, very easy to remember, and unfortunately, very easy to counter. So this is not the type of throw that I would teach one of my students if they were trying to fight an MMA against a wrestler. There are throws that can be easily sprawl against, but at the same time, it's a great throw. It's easier to learn than a wrestling throw, meaning if my student comes to the gym, trains these throws a couple of times, and for whatever reason gets in a self-defense situation in a bar, he's going to be able to remember these throws, even while being nervous. Versus a double leg, for example, if he hasn't drilled that thing 250 times to each side, he's going to go like, well, where do I start? How does that penetration step go again? So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu throws, it's everything. It's all about keeping it simple. Now, we always drill this in my school in a self-defense scenario. It's not the kind of throw I want to use in sport jiu-jitsu. This is not the kind of throw that I want to use in no-gi grappling. It's not the kind of throw that I want to use in mixed martial arts. This is the throw I want to teach the beginner so he can defend himself on the street against an untrained attacker. So he can take that attacker to the ground and finish the fight on his own terms. So we're going to start here with our basic stance. So the stance that we teach the beginner is to just assume a stance that's very similar to our mixed martial arts stance with the right hand up, and I normally teach the beginner just to keep that left hand extended. There's a reason for that. I don't want people to get used to trading strikes. Unless you're trading strikes, say I'm 150 pounds, I trained jiu-jitsu for 6 months, I'm facing James, who is 230 pounds, had a couple of beers, and he is, trying to attack me. I'm not going to go out there if I only train jiu-jitsu for 6 months and try to strike him. Even if I'm a better striker, if he lands there a haymaker that boom lands square on my chin, I'm going to get knocked out. Why? Why fight his fight? I don't want to fight his fight. I want to fight my fight. And my fighting environment is on the ground. So I need to take that fight to the ground. So as a protection, it's easier, and that's why you see in the old tapes, the hand come right here. That's an easier, safer way. Do I recommend that if you have striking training? Absolutely not. I'm right here. I'm fighting him. I don't care if it's 230. But I've been spending, half of my day inside a boxing gym. You probably haven't, so it's a different story. So I would come out here, and sure, I would trade blows with him. It might not be the best option for you or for your student. So teach them both ways, with punches and without punches. The first thing I need to understand in a self-defense or mixed martial arts confrontation when I'm thinking about takedowns is that there are 3 golden rules for when I can take my opponent down. I will never, and that's a side, and that's an exception, I will never take him down right away. I can only take him down in 3 special situations. Number 1, when I strike. So in this case, I strike and I go for my takedown. That's fine. We got his mind switched to striking mode. So he's thinking about punching and kicking instead of defending the takedown. Situation number 2, I fake a strike and I shoot for my takedown. Perfectly fine as well. Situation number 3, he strikes, and as he strikes, I shoot for my takedown. Perfectly fine as well. So once again, 3 golden rules. I will only take my opponent down if, number 1, I'm setting the takedown up with a strike. Number 2, I'm setting the takedown while faking a strike. Number 3, he's striking and I'm counting that strike by going underneath and taking him down. Do not stand right here and try to take him down without, doing one of the 3 things, because then he's going to be focused solely on stopping that takedown, stuffing your takedown, and punishing you for it. So it's not the best ideal situation. The next thing that we need to discuss is the concept of gray zone. So when we're talking takedowns in self-defense, we're talking about commitment. If I shoot at my opponent and something goes wrong, say I slip, or maybe the surface is not, we're not on training mats anymore, we're in a bar, maybe there's some beer that was spilt there on the ground or anything, or maybe we're in a self-defense situation elsewhere, I don't care, the surface is not great and I slip. I should try to finish that takedown nevertheless. That's the concept that we want to give our students, is that you must go until you get the takedown. You must try to persevere until you get the takedown. Why? Because when I'm shooting for a takedown, whatever takedown that is, it doesn't matter which technique I'm using, I'm accelerating into my opponent. So the chances of him actually getting a clean shot will decrease with time. Now, if I change my mind in the middle of this here, because I got a less than optimal shot, I'm going to start, slowing down here. At one point in time, I'm going to be stopped right here, and then I'm going to slowly accelerate backwards because I'm moving backwards. So instead of exposing my head there for a fraction of a second, I might be there for maybe 2 seconds. So the chances of him actually getting a good hit in will increase exponentially. So if you fail, if you're, with a takedown, if you feel like, oh, that wasn't my best shot, it doesn't matter. Drive forward, persevere, and get that takedown no matter what it takes. I don't care if you need to ram that guy into the wall or whatever it is, you got to see it through. Well, that's one thing that I always teach my students. You got to see the takedown through. And what is the gray zone? The gray zone right here is at my distance here is good, meaning I'm beyond his striking distance. So this here is the white zone. I'm clean. I have no problem. Now, where I want to be is my area on the ground. But before I get from this, which is the safe zone, to the ground, which is my safe harbor, I got to pass this distance here. which is the distance where I am within his striking range. Now, this is what I call the gray zone. And the key concept to give your students is whenever you're inside that gray zone, you are committed to, no matter what it takes, take that man down. You're going to either take him down or he's going to hit you while you're trying, but you're not going back. All right? So the first throw that we're going to work here is probably the most famous Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu throw of all times. It's the Baiana takedown. So for the Baiana here, I'm going to stand in my stance. Very important, once again, that I'm protecting my face. I want to keep this as realistic as possible. So if my partner here sees that I'm dropping my hands, well, not necessarily punch me, but, you know, give me a little smack on the face, or at least warn me verbally. So keep your hands up. Don't lower your hands. Don't start thinking about this as a training session because you're not going to do things properly. We're fighting here. So I got to defend, you know, my face from strike. So I get in my base here, and for now, I'm using a southpaw stance here. That's fine. What I'm going to do here is that I'm going to stand and I'm going to jump into my Baiana throw directly with this step here. All right? So this is how it's going to work. My hands are high. I'm going to take a big step. I'm going to go right there, all right, to the throw-in position. What I'm doing here is that I'm crossing the T. I don't want to, you know, move away from that rule. I'm either striking, I'm faking, or I'm waiting for him to strike. Here, I just threw a fake there, which is just, I just smack him in the head here. Not what we're going to do in mixed martial arts, but for training a beginner here in self-defense, it's more than adequate. So hands up, good stance, fake there, and go. Now, when I hit him, this is where things get a little bit more complex. I want to keep in mind that I don't want to freeze there. I want to keep that motion continue. So right here, he's standing here. The trajectory of my head will be this here, going downwards towards his belly, all the way through to the ground. I'm not going to freeze here in this position and try to yank his legs from underneath him. That takes a lot of power. It's going to work on James here. If I'm fighting somebody that's 250 pounds, I might not be able to execute that lift. So it's not about lifting the guy. My hands are behind his knees to prevent him from moving back. And I keep the forward momentum until I take him down. And I'm going to follow through with it. I'm not going to do it like this here. I'm going to follow through and go all the way to the ground. So we start in our stance here. I'm going to go ahead and do a little fake there. Fake and step. Now, as I hit here, I'm controlling behind the knees. And I keep the forward motion until I fall. Once I fall, I'm not going to stay sideways like this. I got what I needed. I'm going to start facing him. Depending on the situation, you know, I'm going to look for the mounted position, side control, or something else. Once again, that will depend, you know, if I'm fighting him in MMA or if it's just, you know, a street fight. If it's a street fight, or is there anybody around? Do I want to be on the ground? Because if there is somebody around, you know, one of his friends, I don't want to be there on the ground for too long. I don't want to get hit with a chair from behind or something like that. So it would depend on the situation. How should I drill that? A couple of ways to drill it here. We're going to do it from this angle so you can see it. My opponent stands right here, and I'm going to face him, my back towards the camera. And you're going to see that he's going to stand in the square stance, so square stance. So there's no favorite side here. I'm going to switch left and right. So I'm going to get in I'm going to start the same way that I did the technique, a southpaw stance here. I'm going to go ahead, take that step, and get to my throw. Now I come back. I'm going to switch to a right-handed stance, which is the way that I would normally fight. I fake, switch. Switch again, fake, switch. Go back to the static position, fake, switch. Go back again, and back and forth 4 reps. That will give you a good idea of how to use the Baiana and left and on the right side. Now, if I run into a little trouble while executing the Baiana throw, which, by the way, it's a Portuguese word. It means from the state of Bahia. So, Baiana. I'm going to go ahead and execute the throw. And if I run into a little bit of trouble, you're going to see that it's a common thing to see people using the hook on the outside of the leg. So, I run into a little, you know, hip power here. Not necessarily full sprawl, but just a little snag here. What I'm going to do is go ahead and use this leg on the outside of James's left leg. And I keep driving. That created a post, prevents him from giving more resistance, and he's going to fall down. And I fall with him. That's the first throw of the series. Second throw of the series is the basic cinturada. Control around the waist. It means to control around the waist. Keep your hands high. Once again, never train this with your hands low. We're talking about self-defense. Be realistic in your training. Hands high. I'm going to fake. For the cinturada, I'm not going to drop levels as much. What I will do here is go ahead and go around his waist. Now I'm going around the waist. I'm trying to place my ear by his shoulder right here. Both of my hands are under. So I have double underhooks, not staying high as I would in wrestling. I'm staying low. You can also see that in wrestling, I'm kind of sideways, always crossing the T. Why is that important? Not only because it guarantees a smooth transition into side control when you land, but you're thinking self-defense. So strikes against the groin area are valid. So if I'm staying right here, he might hit a knee there. So I want to cut that angle and make sure that I'm safe from those types of strikes. My ear is glued to his shoulder once again. Watch what happens. My right arm comes around, left arm comes around, and I'm going to use a gable grip, no thumb. So here, this sort of grip here, which is a very powerful grip, to pull the waist in. As I pull the waist in, I'm applying pressure with my ear. Now, once I got to this position, it's very easy to finish. All I got to do is create a post with my right leg here and start driving forward. Now, as he falls, watch that cushioning action again. This time, his shoulder is protecting my head. So, let's watch it from the beginning again. We're right here. I'm going to fake. Maybe I'm going to throw a jab. Maybe I'm just going to, smack him in the head. And I'm going to come right here. Not too low. There's a slight bend to my head, but I'm not here like I did in the Biona. I'm more upright. And I'm controlling here. Now I'm going to bend in, and I'm going to use my post, and I'm going to drive forward all the way to the ground. As I'm falling, I'm opening that grip. I don't want him to land on top of my hands. It's going to hurt for nothing. Right? I don't need that grip anymore once he's committed to the takedown. I'm going to go ahead and circle, and I'm on the ground. Depending on, what I want to do here, I'm going to follow a different strategy. Last but not least, we're going to talk about a single variation of the cinturada, going behind the back. So I'm right here. I close that distance. I got around his waist. This guy's really heavy and he's fighting. He's trying to square up, meaning he's trying to create an angle there where he's facing me. When that happens, I'm going to go behind his back. So it's very similar to a throw by or almost like a duck under in certain ways. And I'm going to go towards his back here. So what I did there is that I shrugged my shoulder while changing levels. So I can bypass this overhook here and go to the back. So I'm right here, right here. Once I capture this here, I maintain my gable grip. So it's a strong grip. Now I'm going to throw him backwards since this guy's resisting so much. Once again, we're right there. I'm going to fake. I'm going to get that double under. He starts to square up. I'm going to go behind. Once I went behind here, I maintain this grip. Great position for a belly to back. Mario, can I do a belly to back? Absolutely. If you know how to do one, you're going to guarantee me that you're not going to get knocked out in the street, go for it. But this is simpler. So I'm going to go ahead, take a step here, and sit back in a circular motion. My left foot will block right behind his left heel, and as he falls, I open my grip. Why? So he doesn't crush me, and so I can have power to strike down on him. That covers it for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu throws. Remember, always teach your students to train them in a realistic fashion. Thank you. This class is going to be about attacks from the mount. So before we start teaching our students submissions from the mount, we got to teach them how to position themselves in a mount and how to maintain that position. The way that I prefer to mount here, there are basic 3 ways of mounting, but the way that I prefer to teach the students, it's an aggressive mount. So a mount where you're looking for submissions and not a stalling mount. So for this type of mount, the position that I'm looking for is to have my knees high against his armpits. Why? There are 2 basic reasons for that. Number 1 is to block an easy elbow escape. If I'm mounting low right here, it's easy for James to start shrimping out of the way and escape there with an elbow escape. The second reason is while keeping my knees high here, it's very easy for me to attack his arms. No matter where he places his arms, as low or as high as he wants, they're always laying on top of my thigh or ahead of my knee, which makes it easier for me to scoop them up and attack with any submissions of my choice. Now, this is once, like I said, the aggressive way of mounting. There's a different way. But I cannot mount like here. I'm talking to the camera, so, I'm standing upright. The way that this should be done in a real match is to stay as slow and as close as possible to my opponent. So whenever I'm in the top position, I want to stay as low and as tight as possible. That's very important to remember. You don't want to give him any room here to execute escape. So what I will do there is while sitting and relaxing and sitting on top of his belly, I'm going to tilt my upper body until my head is right on top of his head. So as I'm at this level here, the same eye level as him, now I'm going to drop down and bring my body even lower. If this was a match, I actually would recommend, if you're, until you're ready to attack, for you to use one arm underneath his head, thumb up, and use your shoulder to drive that head to the side. The reason I do this is once he's looking to his right side, I know he will escape to the right. There's no way he's going to bridge to the left if he cannot even look that way. So it makes things way simpler for me. I can make sure that I'm well balanced to that side, and he's going to stay there for, the time. Now, the next way of mounting is a way that really limits my ability to apply submission. In every position in Jiu-Jitsu, there's a balance between submission opportunities and control of my opponent. The more submission opportunities I have, the least control I will have, and vice versa. So I need to decide which situation, is useful for me. Now, if I do want to stall this match, and if I want to hold him down to make him wear himself out, what I will do is not this. Instead, I will go lower my center of gravity, and assume a grapevining position here. So what I will do is, instead of mounting in my normal aggressive mount, I shall lower my body here. I'm going to grapevine his legs. And at the same time that I do that, I don't want to place my hands on the ground unless I have to. I'm going to arch my back, and these hands are free to attack. Now, once I do this here, because of the nature of the position, I won't be able to use any regular arm attacks like the arm bar. I'm limited basically to chokes, Americana lock, and a couple of other things. So I'm limiting my positions and my ability to finish this fight here. That's fine. Sometimes I'm winning the match, and I got to stall for the final seconds here. Might happen in a grappling competition. In mixed martial arts, it allows me still for punching, opening, so it's a good situation. And now we're going to look at a couple of submissions from the mounted position. Now we're going to take a closer look at the cross choke from the mount. The mechanics of the cross choke from the mount are the same mechanics of the cross choke from the guard. So the way that I'm going to start my choke here is by controlling the first lapel with my left hand in this case. I want to make sure that I'm stretching that gi collar so that I can place my 4 fingers inside the collar and slide them up into position. It is not a good idea to start with a choking hand and try to climb that hand down towards its desired position. It's much easier to stretch this collar out, place 4 fingers inside, and then slide my right hand down. I want to slide this hand down until my first knuckle touches the ground. So right here, slide the hand down. Now you can see that once I slide the hand down, this hand is in touch with his neck, and the pressure of my cross choke will always be located in this section of his neck here, this triangle here. Now, the pressure will be applied by this side of my hand against this side of his neck. My first hand is always my important grip because it's the choking grip. Everything else in the cross choke is secondary to the positioning of this first hand. So I'm going to stretch the collar right there, slide this all the way to the bottom, and make sure that I have a good, strong first grip. Now, the second grip, its only purpose is to position his head against my choking hand. So my choking hand will be right here. That second hand will come into play only to push his head and tilt it towards the choking hand. So sometimes you can even choke the person without the second hand being in place. Traditionally, the way that I like to choke is use my first hand with 4 fingers in, because that's my grip that will require the strength, the grip that will require the power. It is the choking hand. And the second hand, if I grab with the thumb inside, I'm going to consider myself very lucky. Chances are that I'm going to grab outside his gi. What I mean by that is that I'm not going to place my thumb inside his collar. And sometimes, instead of choking him with the second hand in place, I might use even an elbow. So let's see how this is applied here. I stretch the collar, I place 4 fingers in, and I'm going to slide that hand all the way down until my first knuckle touches the ground. Now, I'm going to come with my second hand, and I'm going to place my thumb inside his gi. You're not going to be able to see it perfectly from that angle, but I'm also sliding my second hand until my knuckle touches the ground. It's very important that I'm not doing what I call a shallow choke here. I want to make sure that I'm going as deep as I can here. Right there. Now, once I get this position, I'm committing both hands to the choke. So I'm going to be completely off balance. If James just used his hips here to thrust me out of position, I would have to let go of the choke and base out, which beats the purpose of trying to attack him in the first place. In order to prevent that situation from occurring, what I will do is place my forehead on the ground, so I'm lowering my center of gravity, and at the same time, I'm basing myself out in case he tries to escape. So I stretch the first collar, 4 fingers will slide through, knuckle to the ground, second hand will come in, and as the second hand comes in, my forehead will touch the ground on the side of the second hand. That's very important so I'm not off balance. Now, once I get to that position, the time comes to finish the choke. The best way to finish the choke is to bring your elbows towards your body. So I'm not opening my elbows like this, but instead I'm positioning my elbow towards my ribs. At the same time, I'm doing this move here, and I'm exaggerating this now. My hands are twisting, so my palms are facing me like that. Right? This twisting motion is very subtle, but it's a very important part of executing this choke properly. It'll take away any slack, it'll make this choke very tight, and it will allow me to use the power of my arms to apply the choke and get to submission. So right here, first hand, I'm going to stretch the collar. 4 fingers come in, deep to the first knuckle. Second hand comes in. If you cannot get it deep enough to the first knuckle, at the very least my 4th knuckle will touch there. Now I'm going to, as I do that, I don't wait for this to be in place. As I'm doing this, I'm lowering my forehead to that side and I touch it to the ground. Now I'm going to bring my elbows towards my ribs at the same time using that twitch and get into submission. So always twist before getting to submission. Once again, 4 fingers come in, knuckle to the ground, second hand with the forehead, twist, and get the choke. Let's take a look at the same choke from a different angle. I start from a good mount position, meaning that my knees are near his armpits, and the first thing to do here is get control of his collar. So I'm going to pull the lapel up to get it to stretch. That way I can use 4 fingers from my right hand here, place them inside, thumb is on the outside, and I slide this hand up all the way down to the ground until my first knuckle touches the ground. I want to make sure this first grip is very strong because this is going to be my choking hand. Everything else is secondary to this hand position here. Now my second hand will come into play. My second hand, I normally use my thumb down inside the collar. Now, my knuckle will touch the ground. Usually, if you can touch your fourth knuckle to the ground, it's going to be good enough. Now, sometimes you can even go deeper and touch the first knuckle. It doesn't matter. It's up to you. Now, I'm going to get the first grip in. Now, second grip will come in here. And I'm going to lower my forehead to the ground as I execute the choke. I'm going to pull up, use a little twist of the hands, and get the tap. Now it's also possible to use a different type of grip here. I could use right here, and the second hand outside, like this. Lower your forehead to the ground, and apply the choke. As a last variation, I could place my hand here, and use my elbow. Once again, it's important to understand that what really matters there is the first hand, the choking hand. Everything else is secondary. Now we're going to look at a defense from the cross choke. My opponent will start the cross choke by putting the first hand in, the choking hand. Now once he has the choking hand here, I need to react right away. I'm not going to wait for that second hand to be in place to then start my reaction. So what I want to do here is try to apply some pressure against the choking hand, try to push that arm towards the midline here. That will give me a little room to breathe here, and if I'm lucky enough, it's going to be even enough for me to bring my chin to my chest. Now, this second hand here will come into place. Once the second hand comes in, I need to attack the second arm on top of the elbow here. So my goal is to push that elbow upward, to create a gap between his first forearm and the second one here. So between the right one and the left one. Now, if I get this gap here, I will be able to exploit it, bringing my left hand in and coming towards my head with it. Now, the way that I want to do this is to comb my hair. Now, this is called the penteando escape here from the cross choke. So I'm going to go right here, and I want to go right here towards the top of my head all the way to the other side. It is very important that I keep my fingers here on the other side. Why? If I just insert this hand right here and I stop there, he's going to choke me through it. So this is a very powerful choke. I got to respect it, and I got to make sure that I'm going to go all the way to the other side. Now, if he attempts to choke me, there will still be pressure there, mainly from the first hand that, against my neck, but it's not going to be enough to choke me out. Once I hit this position here, I don't want to stay here forever. I'm going to be able to push him away, and once I start bridging, my opponent has to let go of the cross choke in order to prevent me from rolling. So that is the basic escape from the cross choke. In this segment, we're going to cover basic attacks from the mount. We're going to cover the arm bar, and we're going to cover two basic arm bar escapes. So we're going to start with the arm bar. I always want to use the same grip when I attack the arm bar. We try to make the grip standard. A lot of schools out there teach this grip here. That's good. That's your basic traditional Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu grip. The problem with this here is once he doesn't have a gi on, things are going to start getting complicated. I don't have anything to grab onto. Some other schools teach this sort of arm bar. That is great if I have some partner here that's cooperating with me and will not react at all. So if somebody that's half dead here, this is awesome. Unfortunately, we're grappling normally with people that actually do react, and I got to make sure that I'm controlling my opponent here. So the grip that I prefer to use is this grip here. I'm using my right hand if I'm attacking his right arm, and I'm going to cup my right hand here. I don't have to use any fingers here, any thumb on the side here. I'm just going to use this hand like this here. So monkey grip slightly above the elbow. Now this is not a strong grip as of now, but once I move into the position, this is going to be a very strong grip. There are basically two ways of doing the arm bar. One that I call the fast arm bar, when I manage to isolate my opponent's arm very cleanly here, and another one that's going to be a slower arm bar for when my opponent's trying to tuck that elbow in. So we're going to start with a fast one here. I'm controlling above the elbow. The next step will be to pull in that arm so I move James's shoulder here off the ground and he's going to be tilted a little. At the same time that I'm doing that, I'm going to step up with my right foot here near his armpit. It's very important that I don't step far away. Keep everything tight. Remember, when you're top, you want to be heavy, you want to be tight. You don't want to give him any room to escape. So I'm going to pull in that arm and step up with my right foot. As I do that, the grip here that was once very loose now becomes extremely solid. What I'm doing there is that I'm bringing my upper body on top of his arm and making a sandwich. My thigh, his arm in the middle, my upper body. And I'm leaning on top of this here. So I don't have to use any power, and still, this grip is very solid. For him to try to yank that arm back here, it's going to be extremely difficult. I will not stay here forever though. Right away, as soon as I get that arm exposed, I'm going to take advantage of it and transition to the next step. I'm going to place my hand on top of his chest, and I got to realize that I will need to bring a lot of weight on top of that hand. Why is that important? Because as I spin my leg around, this is the time of the armbar that I'm most vulnerable to escapes, especially those who are explosive on the bottom. So if I'm fighting somebody that's very strong here, if I attack the armbar and I do not apply any pressure here, he will most likely escape. In order to prevent that, transfer your weight to his chest. It might not prevent him from bridging, but it will definitely slow him down. Now, once I place the hand on the chest, this is the axis around which I'm going to spin, and I will take a long step with my left foot. Once I place this foot right here, you're going to see that I'm a little off balance. That's perfectly normal, and it is to be expected. I'm going to fall back into the armbar. So right here, big step with the left leg and fall back into the armbar. I would go all the way down to the mat with it, but now I'm going to pause here to make sure that you guys understand a couple of basic ideas about the armbar. The first thing is to understand that I got to have heavy legs. So it's very important here not to try to make things tight by pulling on the legs. Once I start pulling on the legs, I create space here, and he can exploit these gaps here in order to escape. Instead, I'm going to relax my legs and make sure they're heavy on top of my opponent. I personally do not like to cross my ankles. Why? If you notice, when I cross my ankles, my knees point slightly to the side. It makes it harder for me to bring pressure downward with my legs. If I do not cross, my knees are pointed up, and it's easier to be heavy downwards with them. Now, the next step will be to pinch and squeeze my knees together. It's very important. This will prevent him from freely rotating his arm. Once I land here, one hand was already there near the elbow, so I'm going to control his elbow with that hand. I do not want to fall back down and then try to pull his arm, because if he starts trying to resist here, I'm going to be using my arm strength against his arm strength. This is not good jiu-jitsu. Instead, as I'm falling down, I want to glue that forearm to my chest, and now I'll use my back muscles and hip muscles to bring that arm down. This way, even against a stronger opponent, I'm going to have an easy time stretching that arm. So right here, bring him down. Once you bring him down, you got to make sure that there's no gap between the wrist and your chest. That's a very common mistake. So bring that wrist down. You can see that as I bring the wrist down, I either get a tap, or if the guy's flexible, he's going to be on the verge of tapping. Now, all I got to do is slowly thrust my hips up, and I get the tap. Make sure you try this very slowly at first. I'm going to go back to the mounted position and execute this once more. So start with the grip, cupping above the elbow. I'm going to step up with my right foot. At the same time, I'm going to take his right shoulder off the ground. I lean on top of that arm, making sure my grip is now tight. I'm making a sandwich here with my thigh, his arm in the middle, upper body. Left hand will now come into play. I'm going to place that hand on top of his chest, using this to pivot around so that I can take a big step with my left leg and fall back, finishing the armbar. Right here. Once I land, once again, I would land right away
into the position. But I want to make sure you understand that I need to have heavy legs. I need to pinch my knees together. And I need to make sure that forearm is glued to my chest as I fall down. Once I reach this position, then and only then I can think about thrusting my hips in order to get the tap. That is the first arm bar variation. Now for the second arm bar variation, we're talking about a guy that maybe has a stronger grip here. I'm trying to get that grip right there, but it's not really working. It's hard to execute a first fast arm bar. What we're going to do instead, I'm going to slide my knee forward. Now if I slide my knee forward and I do not do anything else, he's going to be able to shrimp away from me, and I'm going to end up in my starting position here. Nothing will change. So as I slide that knee forward, I need to prevent him from shrimping. And I'm going to accomplish that by placing my hand on top of his head. That way I know he's not going to move this way here. So I'm going to place my left hand to give me a little base there on the mat. Right hand on top of his head. Now I'm going to slide the left knee forward. As I do that, you can see that I'm stretching that back leg there. That's not good for me. That's not good base. So I need to do something about this. What I will do here is stretch this leg right here. And now, after it's stretched, I'm going to bend it again, but this time to the opposite side. So my foot is facing the camera. Now, it is very important here that I switch all my body weight, this time right in the middle of my thigh. So I'm going to imagine an axis here, so a vector down that is cutting my thigh in half here. And I'm going to concentrate and focus all of my weight here. My heel is towards his head. Now, once I get to this position, what happened there is that his elbow is exposed. There's no way to run, nowhere to hide here. So, if he tries to pull that arm out of there, he's unable to do so. It becomes very easy for me to take control of that arm. Once again, hand on the chest, pivot around, and fall into my arm bar. So let's take a look at that again. I'm going to attack right here. I'm going to start right hand on top of the head, left knee forward. The trail leg follows. I'm heavy in the middle of the thigh. I take control of that arm. Now it's impossible for him to hide anywhere. I place my hand on the chest, and I fall backward to finish the move. Now we're going to start talking about escapes from the armbar. So James will apply an armbar on me. And we're going to talk about the first escape, exploding into guard. So first, when he executes the armbar, I want to be able to react as soon as possible to it. The hitchhiker escape is the third escape. The second escape we're going to move, the third technique that we're going to see today. And I don't want to just use the hitchhiker. If I can prevent and escape before we get to that stretch position, I will do so. So this technique here requires good timing. I need to be waiting and expecting him to fire that armbar, and my reaction needs to be very fast in order to get this right. Now, what I will do here, if his armbar in my right arm, and I'm going to slow it down and just do it here at first on my own, I'm going to bring my right hand on top of my left biceps. Now, I'm going to place my left hand on top of my head. So just think of a rear naked choke-like grip, the only difference being that my left hand is going to come right on top of my forehead. When should I do that? I should do that when he's starting to spin around, when his leg is almost there on top of my head. That's when I need to react. Now, once I do that, not only I do that, but I'm going to explode with him to try to take advantage of his momentum here to get the top position. So this is what it's going to look like. James will start the attack there. I know it's coming, and as he spins around, I'm going to go ahead, capture the position, and get on top. Once I get on top, a couple of things are very important. Number one, I want to make sure that I stay heavy. Don't try to pull back right away, because that will do you no good. Chances are he's going to adjust, and you're going to be able to, he's going to be able to finish the move. Now, the second thing that's important is that I base out with my right foot. So you can see that my right foot is planted on the ground and in great position. My left hand here is behind his left knee. And my right arm is locked there. My left hand here is preventing him from extending it fully. Even if I relax here, you wouldn't be able to extend it fully, just based solely on that left hand control. Now I'm going to start pulling that right elbow out. Slowly, I'm going to yank it out here, and I'm going to get to the point where my elbow will be able to come behind his thigh. Now this is where I'm going to start transitioning into side control. I got to be very aware of the triangle here. I want to apply constant pressure with my ear to the outside of his leg. If I relax here, he's going to open it up and switch into a triangle. So be very careful. Now, once that elbow moves behind the thigh, I'm going to go ahead and move to the side here, and it will expose the side control. Establish good side control position, and you're ready to go. Let's see that once more. So he gets the mount, starts going for the arm bar. I'm going to start reacting right away. Go ahead. And I use his momentum to use the escape. Now I'm going to start pulling that elbow out until I move the elbow behind the thigh. Now this is the time, while keeping pressure on that leg so he can transition into triangle, I'm going to start moving to the side here to clear his legs. Once I clear the legs, I'm going to transition into a solid side control position. The final escape we're going to talk about here is the hitchhiker escape. The hitchhiker escape is very simple, but it's a late reaction to the armbar. So what will happen here is that my opponent will get me in the armbar, and I'm going to start reacting to it. He landed in the armbar here. The first thing I need to worry about is to try to slow the tap out. If I just stay there and try to fight it for long, he will get the tap. But there are certain things I can do that will slow that process. The first one here is to move my elbow out of position. So in order to do that, I'm going to move my thumb in this direction, and thus here the hitchhiker turn. And what that does for me, I'm not worried about my thumb positioning, but that forces my elbow to point downward. That's very important for me here. Now, once I got my elbow pointing downward towards my feet, I'm ready to go. I can start thinking about escaping. So my escape will start with me bringing my hips off the ground here. Now I'm going to crab walk to my left here, trying to walk as far as possible. I'm hoping to be parallel to my opponent here, but that will not happen. So I'm going to start walking to the side here. At one point, I'm going to hit a spot where I can no longer move. This is where I need to step further into this escape. I'm going to do that by taking a big step with my right leg, crossing my legs here, and I plant that right foot on the ground. Now you can see that my left hand here, the one that's free, is going to go underneath me, and I'm going to post this left hand on the other side so that it's easier for me to come up on my knees. I'm going to drop this knee to the ground as I step up with my left leg. Here, almost like a duck under movement. It's very important that once I get to this position that I do not relax. I need to keep my ear pressuring the outside of his thigh. If I back up, he's going to open this and he's going to catch me with a triangle. So maintain the pressure to the outside of the thigh and circle. Controlling his wrist if you can, or simply controlling the position. Let's see that one more time. My opponent applies the armbar. I'm going to start this movement by moving my elbow away. Now, I'm going to go on my toes and crab walk to the side. I'm going to go as far as I can. I'm going to hit a point where it feels like I hit an invisible wall. I can no longer walk to the side. That's fine. Then I'm going to cross my right leg over and make sure that foot is planted. I'm on my left toes here. My free hand, my left hand, will go underneath. As it goes underneath, I'm going to post this hand on the mat. My right knee will drop to the ground. Left foot will be on the ground as my head comes up. right ear, always press on the outside of his thigh. Circle and take a good side control there. In this class, we're going to cover some other basic attacks from the mounted position. We're going to cover the Americana defense, and how to obtain the back mount from the mounted position. So let's start with the Americana lock. The Americana lock will occur when my opponent has the arm bent or somewhat bent. If that arm is straightened out, I'm not going to try to fight this to get the Americana. There are other better options here, such as the arm bar, inverted arm bar, omoplata, and other things. So I'm going to wait for this to occur here, for his arm to be bent at an angle so I can then attack. I'm going to start with my grip here. The grip that I prefer to use when I attack the Americana is a palm down grip. And if I'm attacking the left arm, I'm going to control with my left arm first. If I'm attacking with the right arm, right hand comes first. My hand will control his wrist palm down. There's a lot of controversy here. Some people prefer holding like this because they say it's easier to prevent him from stretching his arm. You know, I actually believe that you should control with the thumb and four fingers on the opposite side. If you're not strong enough to resist somebody, and to prevent them from stretching that arm, that's your own fault. You should work and get in a stronger grip. You should do your exercises. Doing this here is not the proper response to that problem. This will actually allow him to slip out easier, especially if we're grappling here under real conditions. We're both sweaty. It's going to slide very fast. So make sure you use your thumb in there and control palm down against the wrist. When I do this here, the next step will be to drive down and get my elbow here down to the ground on this position here. All right, right on the wedge here between his ear and shoulder. You can notice that my arm now is in a 90-degree angle. His arm is in a 90-degree angle. And my second arm, the arm that's going to come in, will also be in a 90-degree angle. It's important to notice that it's hard for my opponent to just offer this position here. Sometimes I have to set him up, be it by using strikes if I'm in a self-defense or a mixed martial arts situation, or by attacking the neck first, forcing him to try to grab my hand there so I can set up my Americana attack. For drilling purposes, we're just using, him as a dummy here with the arms up. So I control his wrist, palm down, and I drive that with my body weight, not using just the power of my arm, but using my whole body weight behind that move to get the elbow down to that position. My elbow, once again, must be glued to his ear and to his shoulder. Any other position is not good for you. The arm must be bent at a 90-degree angle. If I start doing things like that, it's going to be very easy for my opponent to generate enough force to extend that arm. So if he tries to extend right there, go ahead. I'm going to be unable to prevent that because my grip will be very, very, very weak. So stay right here at a 90-degree angle. Now, I also don't want to go overboard and go here because it's going to be easier for him to grab either his gi or his own hand. And we're going to talk about the escape later. So 90 degrees here is optimal. All right? Now, second hand, it's going to go underneath. I'm going to control my own wrist. Once again, I prefer thumb on one side, four fingers on the other. Now, here's where, most people make a very common mistake. In order to finish the lock here, the way to apply pressure in this lock is by raising the right elbow. I keep my wrist down and his wrist down, and I raise my elbow here, which will elevate his elbow in turn. Now, if I just do this here, I will get the tap eventually, but what happens here is that I'm starting to create such a wide angle that I need to lean forward to start forcing that technique on him. That's not good. As I lean forward, I'm raising my center of gravity, and I'm getting off balance here. It's very easy for my opponent now to escape the mounted position. We always want to stay on top, and we want to be heavy, and we want to be tight. So the way that I want to do this is keeping a low profile. How is that possible? Well, I start the same way, and I get to the same position. But now, instead of applying the pressure right away, I'm going to bring my opponent's left elbow towards my hip bone, like so. So all I'm doing there is sliding his arm on top of my thigh, bringing that left elbow close to my right hip bone. Once I do that, and now I can apply the torque, and once I apply it, it's going to hurt much sooner, and I'm going to get the tap while maintaining that low profile that I talked about. So right here, stay low and apply the pressure until you get the tap. All right? Now we're going to talk about the defense here. The defense to the Americana, obviously the best defense is not to get caught in one at all. You can prevent getting caught in Americana by keeping a good defensive posture. Chin down and elbows in. Sometimes though my opponent is tricky with it and he gets my arm. I could prevent the Americana at a first step by extending my arm in an explosive fashion, making the guy lose his grip and then coming back to a good neutral position. But sometimes, once again, things happen and I'm caught in a good locked Americana. Now what should I do here? Well, if I cannot extend my arm, I got to try to bring my other hand to grab this hand here. The way that I should not do this is by crossing, and this is the easiest path, so be very careful, by crossing that arm in front of my face. So what I'm talking about is this here. My opponent is here, he tries to grab right there. Once he tries to grab across his face, if I let go of the Americana and I apply pressure here, he is in a very bad position. I can expose him and take the back like we're going to check out later, or I can use this for other sorts of attacks like the arm triangle. This is not a good option. What can he do instead? Well, what he should do is to try to grab his own hand coming from the top. All right? Will he be still, open to certain attacks? Absolutely. But he's already going to tap from the Americana, so he needs to do something about this here. There's no perfect escape, and there's no escape from a perfect submission. So we got to do what we have to do here. He's going to go down. He's going to go over the top, grab his own hand here. This is where grip strength matters. Now he's going to pull back. As he pulls back, he gets me out of position. He's not going to stay here forever because I could attack an arm bar on this arm. Now he's going to hide that elbow, bringing it back to the middle, and he's back to the original position. Very good defense, very easy to execute. Let's take a look at that again. I'm going to get the Americana. He goes over the top. He's going to bring it back to the center and dive with those elbows in. That way he's protected. Very simple, very effective. Now for the last technique of the set, we're going to go ahead and demonstrate how to get a back mount from the mounted position. This is very easy to get. I mean, obviously, you can get the back mount by simply punching my opponent. If this was a self-defense situation, most people that are not trained in jiu-jitsu will turn around. It is important for me to let them turn. Don't try to hold too tight to the mount. If my opponent wants to give me his back, I need to accept it. I need to make sure that I, take the pressure off of him so he can roll in his belly. Sometimes people are just trying to get a hold of the mount so tightly that they do not allow the opponent to turn over. But I can also force his mistake here in a submission setting here. So this is what I'm going to do it. I'm going to get a hold of the collar if I want to, and more importantly, I'm going to get a hold of the elbow. Now I'm going to push that collar and that elbow across. Crossing it over the midline. So we're breaking, that midline here. This is very important. Once I get that across, I will not be able to maintain it there forever. So I'm going to lower my chest to this arm here. Now, once I lower the chest and the arm, I'm going to let go of that. I no longer need that grip. Now, I'm going to go underneath his head, and I'm going to control that wrist. Now, once I get that wrist, he's in deep trouble. So be careful with this technique here. Never let somebody get this sort of grip. It's very bad for you. Nothing good will come out of this here. Not for him, at least. So what I will do here is now I can let go of that pressure, and I want to let go of the pressure. Remember, I want to give him room to expose the back. This hand here will come either here or higher on the arm. Since he's just starting to roll, I'll go towards the elbow. Now I'm going to step up with my right foot. Once again, it's all about giving him room, and I'm going to start rolling that guy on his back. Still not on his back. That's fine. I can still roll him here. Now his shoulder is exposed. I'm going to go ahead one further step and get the back here. What if I don't get my hooks right away? That's fine. A lot of times the guy would try to come to his knees. That's when you're going to sink his hooks. So go ahead and he's going to try to come to his knees here, and I sink my hooks in. If he stays down, go ahead and stay down. That's fine. I can take my time and just use this mount here, or I can get control here, get control of the belt, and raise them in order to get my hooks actively. So very simple technique, very easy to attack the back mount from the mounted position. Alright, this is the last class about attacks from the mount. So what we're going to cover today is the Ezekiel choke defense, and the arm triangle. So those attacks are a little bit more advanced, but yet part of our basic curriculum. So I'm going to start with the Ezekiel choke. There are two variations of the Ezekiel choke. We can teach one or the other, or we can teach both if we have a class with more advanced students. So the way I'm going to start the basic Ezekiel choke, variation number 1, is to start it just like a cross choke. But instead of digging that first hand deep all the way, I'm going to stop right here. So I'm going to make the mistake that I would not make in a cross choke. I'm not going to go all the way knuckle to the ground, but instead I'm going to stop right here. As soon as I touch his neck, I stop. It is important for me not to go all the way, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to go around and finish the move. Once I get that first hand in place, the next step will be to lift his neck off the ground as I slide my left forearm underneath his neck, right here. Now, once I do that, I start applying pressure with the back of my hand against his neck here. And that will allow me to lower my right elbow here towards my left hand. Once that right elbow is close enough to the left hand, I'm going to be able to shoot the left hand inside that elbow. And now all I got to do is apply pressure downward with my right hand and upward with my left forearm to get the tap. Right there. Once again, I'm going to go right here. Now I'm going to pull the head up so I can slide my left forearm underneath. Like so. Now I'm going to start applying pressure down with my right arm, bringing my right elbow close to my left hand. I'm going to shoot the left hand inside the right elbow, and now I'm ready to apply the pressure, bringing pressure down with my right hand and up with my left forearm. Getting the tap. This is not my preferred variation of the Ezekiel choke. The way that I like to do the Ezekiel choke is by using my own gi. So what I would do instead is, once I get the left forearm underneath his neck, I'm going to place my 4 fingers inside my gi sleeve. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring this hand over and use it as a knife. So the blade of my hand will come against the side of his neck. As usual, I'm looking to attack this part of his neck here, and the pressure that I'll be able to generate will be much greater than the first variation. So here's how I'm going to do this here. I'm going to control. This time I don't even need to slide all the way to his neck, because I'm not going to use any choking action from this hand like this. I'm going to bring it in later. So I start anywhere I want. I just want to lift that neck enough so I can slide my left forearm underneath. So right here, slide the left forearm underneath. Now I'm going to use 4 fingers inside that collar, so inside the gi sleeve. Once I get my 4 fingers inside my sleeve here, I'm going to go ahead and bring that second hand in. Now if I'm fighting my opponent here and I do those steps and I do not control his head while doing so, he will tuck the chin in or he will look away. I'm not going to be able, I'm going to get stuck here with that right hand not being able to come in there. That's a very common mistake. What did I miss there? I missed the head control. So now let's get into the details of the head control, which is the hardest part to learn about the Ezekiel choke. Now once I lift the head, I'm going to slide my left forearm underneath. Now I'm going to use my left shoulder to force James to look to his left side here. My left hand will come in here, 4 fingers inside the sleeve, and now I'm going to bring my forehead against his forehead to keep that head placed like that. to keep them looking to the left. Here. Now, once I do that, I can let go of that pressure with my shoulder, only after controlling the forehead, and I bring the hand right here to this side. Notice that he's still looking towards his left. Then, and only then, will I be able to finish this choke by extending my arms, bringing pressure downward with the blade of my hand against the side of his neck. Let's see that again. I'm going to start right here. Raise it. 4 fingers inside the sleeve. Pressure with the shoulder. Pressure with the forehead so you can release the pressure with the shoulder. Slide that hand to the opposite side. Now I'm going to start stretching my arms. Watch how easy it is to get this choke. All I got to do is move away from my opponent and I will get the choke. Something that will happen quite often with this choke is for my opponent to roll me over as I'm committed with both hands in there. That's fine. As long as I have a good choke in, he's going to tap as soon as he gets on top there inside my guard. So when you have the Ezekiel choke and your opponent rolls you, don't let go. By any means, just go ahead and stick with it, and you're going to see it's going to pay off. Now, let's talk about the Ezekiel choke defense. Once again, if he had a good defensive posture, it would be very easy to defend because I wouldn't be able to get the Ezekiel choke in the first place. But sometimes, there are flaws in my game, and I'm getting caught in one, and I need to know how to escape. So this is how he's going to escape. Once I bring that choke into place, he's going to defend by trying to block his hand, my hand in this case, to come and touch with his neck. Now he's going to use a circular motion of the head to bring his chin underneath my hand. Once again, protecting his neck. We do not want to have his hand, my opponent's hand here, in touch with my neck. That's not good for me at all. Now, the last and final step will be to attack my elbow, pushing that away. Once he pushes the elbow away, if he keeps pushing and I do not post and let go of the Ezekiel choke, I would be rolled over. And this time, because of the nature of the escape, I would not be able to finish the Ezekiel choke from the bottom, from the guard. He would be able to escape, and then he would move on to attack my guard. So here's how it's done. I'm going to start by getting the Ezekiel choke there. 4 fingers inside my sleeve. I'm going to block. As I'm going there, you can see that James is now using his right hand in order to block my hand from penetrating all the way to his neck. Now, as he does that, he can use a motion, a sideways motion with his chin in order to bring that in. And now I'm across his face. Most sensible grapplers here would let go. And I really recommend that you do not allow your students to choke people against their faces here. That does not prove anything. Even if you get the tap, it wasn't technical. You didn't learn anything from it. Now the last step would be for him to attack my elbow here, pushing it away. Now at this point, I need to let go. If I do not let go, he's going to roll me over. So I need to post here, and the choke is defended. He's going to come back to a good position here. So let's watch that once again. Now I come with Ezekiel choke, and I made it loose on purpose here so you can see it. Now watch how he blocked that knife hand here from reaching his neck. Now he's going to protect his chin, making a wide circle there. Now he's going to attack the elbow, and I'm going to have to let go. If I don't let go, he's going to roll me over. I'm going to land inside my guard, and I will not be able to finish the choke. All right? Now we're going to take a look at the last attack from the mount, the triangle, the arm triangle. So I need to think of the arm triangle the same way as I think about the triangle from the guard. The triangle choke consists of 2 bars with the neck in the middle. So in the triangle from the guard, the top bar would be my calf, the bottom bar would be his arm. On the triangle from the mount, so the arm triangle, I'm not going to get the calf down there. So I'm going to substitute my calf by my arm. All right, my forearm will take place instead of the calf. Now, the other arm will be the opposite bar. So the bottom bar will be the same. In this case, the top bar. So instead of a calf and arm, it's going to be forearm and arm. But the mechanics of the choke are exactly the same. That's what I got to keep in mind. I do not treat this as a neck crank. I treat it like a choke. So here's how we're going to start doing this here. I'm going to attack first by controlling his elbow, and I'm going to move that elbow towards his face. I can use this sort of motion here, just pushing it towards his face in an explosive fashion. If he has a gi, I can grab the elbow here and force it there. So it depends on what I want to do. Keep in mind that once I get it there, it's not going to stay there forever. It's very hard for me to maintain this grip. So I must lower my body here and trap that arm. Not with my arm, but with my chest. So once I get this here, I'm going to lower my body here so I can trap the arm. And you can see what happens there is that one arm is on one side of the head, the other arm is on the other side of the head. I'm not going to stay here like this. I'm going to go deeper with it so my right forearm is underneath his neck. I got my thumb up here so far. Now, I have to lower my head so my ears are lower than his elbow. If I stay where I am right now, go ahead and move that elbow back. He's going to start moving that elbow back. It's going to go against my neck, and I will have to give. So it's very important for me to lower my level so that my ear is lower than his elbow. Here's what I'm talking about. I moved it there. Now I'm going to sink in at the same time that I go underneath with the forearm. I got to dive in with my hand on the opposite side. Here. So now this choke is tight. The next step here will be to come with the left hand and grab my opposite elbow. So I keep this tight and I bring my left hand against the opposite elbow. You can see that my right hand will rest against my biceps. There are many ways of doing this. Some people recommend dismounting in order to finish the choke. If you need to dismount, then be it. But always try to finish from the mount. There's no reason to expose yourself to a different position here. Alright? Now, if this wasn't jiu-jitsu, that's a different story. You know, mounts do not count for anything, so I could move to side control. It's a personal preference, and you know, I cannot tell you what you should do. It will depend on each situation here. So control the far elbow, and the right hand rests against your biceps here. Stay low right here. Now, before I crank, I'm going to have to make this tight. So before I crank, I'm going to move my left elbow this way. So this is the first vector here. I'm going to drive everything to my left. After I drive as far away to the left as possible while keeping both elbows down, I'm going to drive to the front, this time to the right side, 45 degrees. Very important not to tilt the arm. So I don't want one elbow or the other coming off the ground. I want to keep both elbows on the ground and keep as low as possible. So right here, move first movement to my left. Here. Now everything is much tighter. Now I can use the second movement, 45 degrees to the right. And I get the choke. Will there be a crank component to the choke? Absolutely, because this is much heavier since I'm on top than a triangle from the bottom. But it is a choke, so I got to keep in mind that this is a choke. Now, once again, I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate the technique. I'm going to pull the elbow across right here. Now I'm going to sink this arm through as I lower my head on the opposite side. And I put my right forearm underneath his neck, thumb up. I'm going to reach with my left hand towards his right elbow. My right hand here is on my left biceps. Now I'm going to slide everything to the left to make everything tighter. Once I do that, I'm ready to finish the choke. I'm going to move 45 degrees to the front and get the tap. If at this point I feel like 45 degrees to the front from the mount will not do it, I then can dismount. I can leave one knee up and finish, or I can even put both knees down and finish. I can also assume a sideways position here, which will allow for even a further pull before I apply the technique. So this is the last class regarding attacks from the mount.
Yeah.
Bye.